Happy Thanksgiving month, everybody, and Tony here with my review of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, which was released on December 10, 2001 at Odeon Leicester Square and had its American premiere 9 days later and New Zealand premiere 10 days later, which I also saw at the Cinesta Kubix am Alexanderplatz. This film was directed, written, and produced by Peter Jackson. It was based on J.R.R. Tolkien's The Fellowship of the Ring. It was co-written by Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens. It was co-produced by Barry Osborne, Fran Walsh, and Tim Sanders. The cinematographer was Andrew Lesney. The editor was John Gilbert. The music was composed by Howard Shore, and it starred the talents of Elijah Wood, Sean Astin, Billy Boyd, Dominic Monaghan, Ian McKellen, Ian Holm, Christopher Lee, Viggo Mortensen, John Rhys-Davies, Hugo Weaving, Sean Bean, Orlando Bloom, Kate Blanchett, Liv Tyler, Andy Serkis, Alan Howard, Sala Baker, Harry Sinclair, and Marton Chokas. Speaking to you as a millennial born in 1992, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy was my personal introduction to J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings novels. I did not grow up with either the Ralph Bakshi animated film version or even the version produced by Rankin Bass. It was Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy that made me thoroughly engaged with the world of Middle-earth, Mordor, and all of the world building that J.R.R. Tolkien had to deliver. I remember catching this film when I was approximately 9 years old, and although I enjoyed it, I could still recall it being too long for my 9-year-old brain to endure. Nevertheless, The Fellowship of the Ring was a great introduction to J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy. Nowadays, speaking to you as a 32-year-old man who has graduated from my Master's in American Studies program, I can state with confidence that Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, was one of the best films I caught back in 2001, totally up there with the first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I appreciated everything that The Fellowship of the Ring had to offer, from its world building to its wonderfully excellent cinematography to its ensemble cast. And the fact that it still managed to hold up after over 23 years is definitely a feat that was so well accomplished and managed to do so with flair, bravado, and complete excellence. Story-wise, The Fellowship of the Ring intersects a couple of plot points. The first plot point has the element of the all-powerful ring being a source of great power to those who covet it, but also a source of great destruction to those who abuse its power. There's also that element that the all-powerful ring could be a source of either the world's end or even, to that extent, the destruction of the entire world should one abuse its power, given that the denizens of Middle-earth also have their own rings for various purposes, from all the mystical creatures all the way up to the elves and even to a lot of the humans who have to guard their rings. So this all-powerful ring could either bring a lot of great power or invincibility, or cause the individual to give into their own greed and set about the destruction of the entire world. Another plot point that is intersected is the coming-of-age story of Frodo Baggins, who is a young hobbit who has found himself drawn to the ring and the lore of this ring because of his adoptive uncle slash father figure, Bilbo Baggins, who also found the ring and ended up taking it from Gollum after finding it completely alone. Even before all the events set off, there was a warrior king named Isildur who was a brave warrior who fought against all invaders, who obtained the ring from one of Sauron's warriors. In fact, Sauron was the wizard and the all-powerful evil entity who created this ring. And once Isildur obtained the ring, he let the power get over his head and he became greedier and succumbed to the ring's power. All of this ended with his death and destruction. Eventually, Gollum, formerly known as Smeagol, retrieves the ring but ends up losing it only for Bilbo to take it with him and keep it for many years to come. And all of this intersects with Frodo fatefully being introduced to the ring, let alone obtaining the ring, and realizing just how much this ring is both a source of great power, but also a source of great greed and self-destruction, let alone destruction to the entire world should one abuse its powers. So there's a lot going at stake with the first film, and I loved every moment of it. I even recall during one screenwriting class 13 years ago at my film school that we also talked about the hero's journey. And I remember one of my instructors giving Frodo's journey as an example of the hero's journey. From his idyllic life at Hobbiton, to being involved with this ring, to also being on this quest to not only guard the ring as the ring bearer, but eventually try to destroy it, even if it proves to be such a great challenge for him. So for the first Lord of the Rings film, this managed to be a great introduction as well as prove itself to be involving with its story and make it so peppered with tension, excitement, action, thrills, and fantasy elements to show that there is that great balance of action, thrills, and fantasy that many fantasy action fans are totally engaged with, let alone love. So the Fellowship of the Ring managed to be a great experience from beginning to end, and I totally salute everybody involved in the writing department for ensuring a great deal of tension, excitement, and thrills to be used in the first installment of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The cinematography is excellent, whether it be all the camera shots being used, from the flying shots to some of the close-ups to some of the medium shots, let alone every other shot being used in the first Lord of the Rings film. Every shot was a great success from beginning to end. Even the effects made me as the viewer totally hypnotized because of just how masterful each of the craftspeople made this film come to life. I believed I was in Middle-earth with all of its bucolic majesty. I felt in total awe with Rivendell's gorgeousness, and I was shaking in my boots with Mordor's thrills and scares. And this is also thanks to the fact that this was shot in New Zealand. And 3 examples of these iconic locales being filmed were Waka Papa Ski Field for Mordor, whether it be in its snowy landscape or its more volcanic moments that made me not only in awe with its majesty, but totally trepidated with all of that fire and brimstone just bursting on the screen. Mata Mata for Hobbiton, which was absolutely lovely in its use of bucolic landscapes. And that sense of serenity and joy that I obtained from just being involved and wanting to have a nice time there at Hobbiton with all the hobbits. And Kaitoke Regional Park for Rivendell, in which the natural surroundings were being used to the film's advantage. Every single locale being used in New Zealand definitely made the Fellowship of the Ring, let alone the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, a sight to behold. And it's also thanks to Peter Jackson and his crew for making all of this come to life. The music is a great mixture of Celtic music and a whole lot of exciting orchestral and choral scores to build up the tension and the overall excitement that I obtained as the listener. Whether it was the Celtic jigs found in those celebratory moments of the Hobbits, especially where Bilbo Baggins' birthday is concerned, and even when Frodo, Pippin, Merry, and Sam enjoy themselves partying at a small bar, or the use of a chorus and heavy orchestra to show impending doom, especially when it comes to Saruman's henchmen being used as obstacles never to be messed with and obstacles to be scared of. And the credits song, May It Be, sung by Enya, which is absolutely soothing thanks to Enya's supple mezzo-soprano voice. The music was an absolute feast for the ears, which also serves purposes in the story and also heightens the tension for certain characters, as well as give the characters and all those moments a lot of flair and personality. The characters were all exciting and full of distinction, thanks to how much I was able to be thoroughly involved with each of their individual stories. And they all had a purpose to the story and had their own motivation for being there. Before talking about Frodo, the main hero, a few words about Isildur. Yes, he is a warrior king who proves himself to be initially valiant and tries with all of his might to vanquish evil. But once he obtains the ring, he becomes selfish, greedy, and just so motivated by power and avarice, which also causes his own self-destruction. And he serves a purpose in the story as being the first victim of the all-powerful ring. The next character to be obsessed with the ring's power, let alone its majesty, is Gollum, who is this misshapen miscreant of a creature who claims that it is his precious and is obsessed with it, even to the point where he would never want to be separated from it. And even though he does come off more as an ominously mysterious creature in the first film, his role in the second film is a lot more expanded. But it's safe to say that he is an ominous presence, especially toward the main characters. Speaking of the main characters, Frodo Baggins starts off as a naive and innocent hobbit who has a whole lot of kindness in himself and a genuinely loving soul. However, he finds himself thrusted into the ring's overall power when Bilbo Baggins tells him of his expeditions with it. And his role as the ring bearer makes him faced with a dilemma, whether he guards the ring with all of his life, destroys it before it destroys him, or uses it to his advantage for more power and invincibility. So he is faced with a lot of tough choices as the ring bearer, and none of those choices can be solved quickly and easily. He does exercise inner courage, although his hesitation of trying to grow from being this innocent boy to becoming this hero shows that he's not so sure if this is going to be the path destined for him. Therefore, Frodo Baggins is the designated chosen one of the story, who is unsure of the path that he's going to take as the ring bearer, but knows that he has to accept this quest and recent lot in life. He also may not be that much of a fighter, but he tries to ensure that his heart is in the right place, not only toward himself, but also toward the people that he cares about, most especially his best friend Sam, as well as his close friends Pippin and Merry, and everybody who helps him with his journey with the ring. Samwise Gamgee, aka Sam, is a lovable and absolutely loyal best friend slash brother from another mother to Frodo. He is one who tries to never be separated from him, even when things get tough, because he has that inward sense of loyalty about him that I personally enjoyed and managed to find completely admirable about Sam. He is also willing to fight by Frodo's side even when things get dangerous and contentious. Thus, he proves his loyalty not necessarily as a sidekick, but more of a supporting hero who can be just as heroic and just as brave, if not more courageous than Frodo is. Thus, Sam's trustworthiness as Frodo's best friend for life shines with every single fiber of his being. Peregrine Took, aka Pippin, and Meriadoc Brandyback, aka Merry, might seem like just those two guys who are nothing more than comic relief, but there's a lot more to them than meets the eye. They also prove themselves to be valiant friends toward Frodo, and will not let anybody hurt their friend, and can even prove themselves to be just as capable fighters, given their mastery of throwing daggers and even using bladed weapons to fight against any threat that comes along their way. So while Pippin and Merry might seem like comic relief on the outside, there's a whole lot more to them, considering that they prove themselves to be just as loyal as Sam is to Frodo, and additionally prove themselves to be just as valiant, all thanks to their courageous hearts and earnest personalities. Gandalf the Grey is the wise mentor figure, not only to Frodo, but arguably towards Sam, Merry, Pippin, and the rest of the members of the Fellowship of the Ring. He is a wise wizard who gives sagacious advice, but he is not one to be messed with because he has a lot of inner fortitude and a lot of strength about him. His strength is also drawn from the concern that he has for some of his old friends, such as Bilbo Baggins, and protecting himself from friends who have betrayed him and have succumbed to the ring's power, such as Saruman the White. So Gandalf is a great combination of sagacity and formidability, all thanks to his prowess as a sorcerer. Bilbo Baggins might seem like a lovable and caring old man who has also tended to Frodo when he was a little boy, but even he has his dark secrets with the ring due to obsessing over its power and even having a close history with it. He too is conflicted with the ring and how much it has caused him to not only obsess over it, but also fear that he might succumb to its incredible power if he is not careful. Thus, Bilbo's personal conflict with the ring remains as strong as ever. You might initially think that Saruman the White seems like the good wizard and just as much of a friend to Gandalf the Grey. However, the truth about Saruman is that he is totally consumed by the ring's power and has proven himself to be cruel, manipulative, and the type of sorcerer that you do not want to mess with on a daily basis. He is also in command of the orcs, thus proving himself to be a dangerous threat. Aragorn possesses two facets about him. The first facet is that he is a formidable and strong warrior who happens to be this rebel of a ranger, wanting to be away from the legacy that his father created, and a contentious legacy at that, so that he can carve his own path in life. Thus, he shrouds himself in mystery and a whole lot of virile strength. On the other hand, he is a courageous soul, unafraid to ensure that his comrades remain secure and well informed as to what is going on. He never backs down as a warrior, even when he is confronted by Isildur's contentious legacy. Thus, Aragorn is an amazing combination of nobility, mysteriousness, and virility. Boromir presents himself as a rather skeptical knight who is unsure of the ring's power and feels that Frodo's quest with this ring is far too big not only for him, but for humans, elves, and many other mystical creatures combined. But he also proves himself to be a loyal soul and proves himself to be just as strong of a fighter as Aragorn is, and is also willing to protect his comrades from all harm. Gimli has been a personal favorite character of mine because of how gruff and strong-minded and stubborn he can be. Even with that gruff stubbornness that he has, he does have that little teddy bear moment when he encounters Galadriel and is totally enchanted by her. What also makes him the archetype of being hard on the outside but totally soft on the inside is how much he cares for his family, especially for his brother. And if you know the fate of his brother, you might end up feeling a lot of empathy and compassion for him. All of these attributes make me admire Gimli so much as a character. There is no doubt that Legolas is one of the most popular characters in all of Lord of the Rings history. He proves himself to be a valiant soul and one who is constantly thinking fast on his feet. This is also by virtue of his prowess as an archer and how he constantly carries a brave face even in the face of danger. Elrond presents himself as a mighty and wise elf warrior king who ensures the safety of his people and has his doubtful fears of what the ring could cause if used in the wrong hands. So he also contributes well to the story. Galadriel is another character I've been admiring ever since I was a young boy because there was that nobility to her that I not only admired but also adulated. She also serves as a bit of an assistant mentor figure to Frodo and his comrades by giving them special weapons to be safe from all evil. There's also a dignity to her that manages to make her both beautiful on the outside as well as, most especially, on the inside. She too is thoroughly aware of the power and damage that the ring can cause when brought into the wrong hands, and she also tries to make sure that the main heroes are just as well equipped when they're faced with their own personal temptations or faced with various external dangers. Arwen is an elfin warrior princess who is elegant, noble, courageous, and absolutely smart, both mentally and physically. She does not take crap from anybody and is willing to not only stand for what she believes in, but also fight for what's good for her people. I also love her romantic moments with Aragorn because they have excellent chemistry together. There's no animosity, there are no hot and heavy moments. So far in the first film, it's really sweet and tender. And I really bought Aragorn and Arwen as a couple because of the potential they have to be in a conjugal relationship and exercise unconditional love, respect, and allegiance. But she is no doormat toward Aragorn. As I stated before, Arwen is totally admirable in terms of her will to fight for her people and defend herself against any great danger that comes along her way, and is just as willing to protect Rivendell from all peril. Sauron's presence intimidates me to my core because of just how vicious and cruel he is as a demonic entity. And he serves his purpose in the story as the great evil that will take over the world once the next victim falls prey to the ring's power. Celeborn, Galadriel's husband, also serves his purpose in the story by being just as noble and strong-minded as his wife is, even though his dear wife Galadriel has the lion's share of ensuring that the main heroes stay safe and also show a lot more awareness of what the ring can offer in terms of the consequences should they take the ring's power too lightly. So far, the characters in the Fellowship of the Ring are all strong and contribute so handsomely to the first installment. The important characters serve a purpose, especially when it comes to either succumbing to the ring's power or trying to destroy the evil found in this very artifact. Everybody has their own goal and motivation and drive, thus making me, as the viewer, totally engaged with what they had to offer. Whether it was the main members of the Ring's Fellowship, such as Frodo, Gandalf, Sam, Pippin, Merry, Aragorn, Gimli, Boromir, and Legolas, or even Gandalf's mentorship serving as a buttress of strength, or Saruman's betrayal against his old friend and his evil intentions being sowed. Every single character is brimming with a whole lot of life and a whole lot of interest and distinction, thus making me thoroughly enjoy everything they had to offer to the table. The acting was just as amazing as the characters involved. Elijah Wood managed to balance both youthful innocence and wide-eyed curiosity to make Frodo Baggins work so well as a character, and he made me just as involved in Frodo's coming-of-age story, from innocent young man to unwilling hero finding himself in this huge entanglement and also realizing that his destiny might be a lot stronger than he thinks it is. And eventually having those subtle hints of bravery, even if he finds himself being thrashed and torn and nearly having his life taken away from him. All of what Frodo endures is thoroughly palpable, and it's all thanks to Elijah Wood's understanding of the character and how much he was able to inhabit him with a whole lot of boyish and youthful charm, but also back it up with that growth that subtle growth that he has to make Frodo a fully realized hero, even though he is not the conventional superhero. He is a hero in his own special right, and Elijah Wood managed to sell it so well. Sean Astin was absolutely brilliant as Sam. He combines that jovial loveliness to him while also making him valiant and noble in his own special way. Sean Astin is no stranger to playing a lot of sidekicks or hero supports. In fact, he's also played the role of Linus from the Hercules miniseries starring Paul Telfer as the titular hero. And here he is proving himself to be absolutely reliable as Sam, making him absolutely lovable in his own special way, and making him a character I could also root for from beginning to end. Billy Boyd's portrayal of Pippin is absolutely charming and lovable, as is Dominic Monaghan's portrayal of Merry. And both Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan managed to play off of each other extremely well. Ian McKellen's lengthy experience as a Shakespearean actor was put to fantastic use as Gandalf the Grey. He imbued him with a lot of wisdom, strength, and formidability, as well as that fatherly/grandfatherly and uncly nature about him that made Gandalf the Grey work exceedingly well as a character, let alone as a mentor figure to Frodo and a lot of his younger wards. There's an inner strength to Ian McKellen that made his portrayal of Gandalf work, and he used it to his advantage, thus making me thoroughly engaged with everything Gandalf had to proclaim, and especially when he instills his words of wisdom to his young wards and comrades. Ian Holm plays up both the fatherly appreciativeness of Bilbo as well as his more conflicted sides whenever the ring is brought up, thus showing that he can find that great sense of balance to make Bilbo a human character and also a character backed up by a good amount of warmth about him. There's no doubt that I love Christopher Lee, and he is at his strongest when it comes to playing villains, all thanks to his trademark bass baritone voice that is imposing, strong, and thoroughly intimidating that left me nervous every time Saruman the White entered the screen. That is just how much of a great actor Christopher Lee was. He made me feel nervous and have goosebumps whenever Saruman the White entered the screen and was about to thrash Gandalf in a magic showdown. Not to mention, his chemistry with Ian McKellen demonstrates that both Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee are strong veteran actors who have proven themselves to be well-versed not only with the classics, i.e. Shakespeare, but also a lot of the works that they've been involved in for many, many years as veteran actors. So Christopher Lee's strong contributions as Saruman the White were absolutely commendable. Viggo Mortensen imbues mystery and virility as Aragorn, but also backs him up with a whole lot of valiance, strength, and charisma. There's just something so charismatic about Viggo Mortensen as Aragorn that made me thoroughly enjoy his presence every time he was on screen. And that charisma managed to be his great strength in making Aragorn an absolutely involving and engaging character. Sean Bean has that Lancer quality about him that made his performance as Boromir work so well, but he also backs him up with loyalty and a whole bunch of virile charisma that made him just as much of a comrade toward Aragorn and made him just as strong of an actor as Viggo Mortensen was as Aragorn. John Rhys-Davies embodied Gimli's lovable roguishness to such a great extreme, and I mean that in the most positive way. He was no stranger to playing a lot of these gruff uncle/gruff father figure characters, and he showed it as Gimli. The combination of gruffness and that warrior mindset that he has as Gimli managed to make John Rhys-Davies work exceedingly well in this role. Hugo Weaving was noble and dashing as Elrond, thus making him a character that while not having a great amount of screen time, managed to be totally impactful, all thanks to Mr. Weaving's noble and tall presence. It should be no surprise that Orlando Bloom was the apple of every young girl's eyes in the 2000s as Legolas, and he was also the it guy to a lot of young boys looking up to him because of Legolas's mad archery skills. And this is attributed with Orlando Bloom embodying Legolas with his fairy tale prince-like behavior, being noble, dashing, and thinking quickly on his feet, especially when the situation gets dire. And most of all, he imbued Legolas with heroic charm and likability, thus making him both easy on the eyes as well as someone worth encouraging and rooting for. I make it no surprise that I adore, love, and adulate Cate Blanchett. She was absolutely gorgeous and brilliant as Galadriel, all thanks to her regality and sense of womanly charm that managed to make me hypnotized every time she entered the screen. She was regal charm incarnate as Galadriel, and I could not have had it any other way. Liv Tyler embodied Arwen with formidability, courage, and strength. And she was also quite the looker because of how gorgeous and noble she was, especially when she combined gorgeous formidability and elegant heroism that made Liv Tyler's portrayal of Arwen win in my eyes. Marton Chokas was noble and dashing as Celeborn. He made the best out of this king and did so with elegance, handsomeness, and nobility. Andy Serkis was absolutely iconic as Gollum, and he also managed to do a great job with his motion capture effects as well as the acidic voice that made Gollum come to life. So free cheers to Mr. Andy Serkis for doing such a brilliant job in bringing Gollum to life with his sneering acidity and creepily miscreant nature that managed to make him all the more engaging in my eyes. Harry Sinclair did an amazing job combining nobility as a warrior king, but also finding himself completely engaged, let alone corrupted by the ring's power as Isildur. He was absolutely superb in this role that I managed to be thoroughly engaged with the history of how he got himself suckered in by the ring's power. Alan Howard was intimidating as the voice of the One Ring, and Sala Baker was just as intimidating as Sauron. So overall, the acting was absolutely brilliant. All the actors did such an amazing job, and each of them embodied their characters with a lot of iconic strength, purpose, and formidability. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring was an absolutely amazing first installment. It managed to make me thoroughly engaged with the story. The characters were thoroughly brilliant. The world building was excellent. And Peter Jackson's vision of J.R.R. Tolkien's text managed to be an absolute work of brilliance and sheer artistry. And you know what I'm gonna give The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring? A well-deserved rating of 5 out of 5 stars. It is an absolute must-watch. Whether you're a newbie to the J.R.R. Tolkien universe or already experienced with J.R.R. Tolkien's works, you owe it to yourself to catch The Lord of the Rings' first installment, The Fellowship of the Ring. Everything about this film worked, from the cinematography to the story to the characters. Everything managed to be thoroughly brilliant, and it's no wonder why this was not only one of the best films of 2001, considering that it also won a good chunk of awards from the Academy Awards, but also it managed to be one of the finest adaptations of J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy series. Therefore, the timelessness of the first installment of The Lord of the Rings managed to ring true not only 23 years ago, but even to this very day. And I'm sure that for those of you who've caught it, will also feel just how impactful and exciting its legacy has been. And for those of you who caught the first installment of the Lord of the Rings films, aka The Fellowship of the Ring, what'd you think of it? Did you really enjoy this film, whether you first watched it when you were much younger back in 2001, or even managed to rewatch it to this very day? Did you also find yourself rewatching this film in its entirety? Was there a favorite scene that you loved to go back to every single time you caught this film? Did you also feel like the characters were all well developed and served a great purpose to the story? Or did you feel like this film was not really to your liking? Please let me know in the comments below. Well, that's it for my review of the first Lord of the Rings film, The Fellowship of the Ring. Tune in next time for hopefully my review of Gounod's Romeo et Juliette at the Staatsoper unter den Linden. So until then, happy Thanksgiving month, everybody, and have a great evening.